Hey, welcome back to the Kingsway Podcast. Thanks so much for being here. Got my special guest, Jordan.
What's up, guys?
I'm glad you're here. I know you said you've never been on a podcast before.
Never been on a podcast
But you are
before.
a fan of podcasts.
I'm a big fan of podcasts, yes.
So can we say, though, that this is the best podcast you've ever been on?
The best podcast I've ever been on.
Oh, man. Jed, we just hit the nail on the head. Yeah. We are the best. That's all I heard. Don't connect the dots into anything we just talked.
Best podcast.
Well, I'm excited to have you the program. We do a lot of different things, but this is a first for us. This is just the first year of our podcast. We've never been able to have one of our missionary partners here at Kingsway on the podcast. 2020 is still on fire. Australia's out, but evidently the rest of the world now is burning.
I mean, it's the pandemic is literally burning, but now it's figuratively burning.
So whether you agree on that or not, it's still causing a fire in most people's lives. And so I know for your life, you have been a little bit on edge and maybe some things have fallen out of what you would know. Are you even supposed to be in the States right now?
It's been a really uncertain year for sure. A lot of weird decisions to be made.
I know that, your mission, we're going to get to that. We're going to talk through what you do and what you and your fiance have been able to be a part of, the organization that's through. And then obviously some of the things that have been put on hold that you were getting to do. And then even some of the things, though, that have continued through this year that you're hoping to even partner back up with before the end of the year. So that being said, I want to just give a little background. Jordan, you came to Kingsway when you were in like 8th grade, 7th or 8th grade.
Yeah.
Okay. So you were like half your height and like a fourth of the weight and no threat to me physically.
Not at all.
And right now, that is just not true.
I got a little more imposing as I got older.
As you work out almost every day, and every day I realize my age.
Yeah.
And,
whenever you're locked inside, all there is to do is work out, right?
Well, and I know that you're in the prime, all right? Your body is a fully functional tool of destruction or power, and you're utilizing that, and I'm proud of you. So 7th, 8th grade, you joined the youth group. I remember, I was the youth pastor at the time. We got to interact. We had some great memories in camp and, just Wednesday nights and you being you and driving me crazy time to time. Also,
I would have drove myself crazy if I met my 7th grade self now.
You were great, man.
I would have drove myself crazy. So I understand.
Everybody looks back and looks at the hair or the way they looked, and it's like a half-developed anything.
Yeah.
Like you're like, it's not just, it's not quite who you're going to be.
Yeah, you don't think that in middle school?
No, you don't. You think you're hot stuff. LFO, here we come, boys of summer. But at the same time, I know that you've grown up in the church, and I've watched you mature, and even graduating, and now doing like you had, where you've toured the world a little bit with YWAM, and you've had a chance to get out of the country and see California. And I know when I knew you back then, you were you had some history, but you were basically a Missouri boy.
Yeah,
in a small town.
Yeah, I was a little redneck boy. I still am a little redneck boy, but just a redneck that travels.
Yeah, but you've had a little bit of that like grown out of you.
Yeah,
and in the best of ways. I know that that's always going to be a part of who you are, and there's nothing to be ashamed of that. But seeing that the world's a little bigger place. Like, what do you remember? I mean, since 7th grade, like what in the history of Kingsway do you think of? Like, you could say good or bad things there, but like what sticks out because you've been here for over a decade.
The timeline of Kingsway. Wow. Well, I mean, whenever we switched from going to that old building to in here, because there's so many people, that was like monumental.
Yeah, and you mentioned that we have a daycare building that had a small room, but then our youth group got larger.
Yeah,
and we had to move over here.
My first time I came here, I think there's like 12 kids, and like half of them were Palmquists. So
so true. So true.
Yeah, there was not very many, and then like we went to Colorado. I remember that. That was like my first trip with Kingsway, and then
Camp Como, shout out.
Camp Como, that was awesome. And then I became just a part of the youth group. Another thing, I guess I joined the worship team when Jed came back and started going to the youth group, and we started the like full worship band for Wednesday nights. I played, and that was like a big moment in my life because I didn't even know I knew how to play music, and then all of a sudden I'm like playing every week, and I'm like falling in love with it. So
and it was playing the bass, right?
Yeah, started on the bass, and then I picked up the guitar, and then now I barely play any of them. I don't know why, but I mean, I still love
you have
it.
Other passions. You've been playing some disc golf. You do other things.
I'm one of those guys who gets like laser focused on a hobby for like 4 months, and like my life is about this hobby, and then I just kind of forget about it. And then hopefully I come back to it later.
Having that multifaceted understanding of a lot of hobbies is actually very helpful when you're interacting with other people. You can do a lot of different things. And I know you've played with the worship team still.
Yeah, I played a couple weeks. Yeah.
Yep.
I'd say I'm one of those guys who's like good at most things, but not great at anything.
Well,
One
there's
of
a
those
lot of
guys.
value in that, and I know that if you wanted to be, you could be in
Yeah.
something. So, like after high school, then you graduate, and then you did some fun adventure stuff. I know you mentioned it, but you jumped into YWAM. Is that what ended up happening?
Yeah, I went to college for a year at Southern.
And maybe people don't know what YWAM is. So once you get there,
Yeah.
so you went to semester
I
at
went
Southern.
2 semesters at Southern, decided it wasn't really for me.
Mhm.
There's nothing really bad about college. It just wasn't. I mean, honestly, I wasn't very good at high school. I don't know why I thought it would change when I went to college.
So you were better at college. So
No, it was worse at college.
Hey, bro, 7 years into 4-year degree is what I shoved into it. So I get it. I get it.
Yeah,
I
your third
struggled
junior
too.
year, you were like, all right, I should probably figure this out. And then, so I dropped out, and then I was like, well, I don't want to just like not do anything. So I had some friends who had done YWAM.
What is YWAM?
It's a nonprofit missional organization that is like in every country on earth. There's like 190 bases where they do ministries. It stands for Youth with a Mission. It was started in like the 70s. They're like one of the big, it's like that and like Campus Crusade are like the two big like missional organizations around. And it's like non-denominational, which is kind of what's different from it.
Yeah,
so it's not
it doesn't
like
have like a affiliation with one or the other. Okay.
One like denomination. So I went and like did like an intro missionary training program is kind of what they call it. It's like a discipleship training school. And it's like a 6-month, 5-month program where you spend the first 3 months in like wherever you're at. I was in Ensenada, Mexico, and you like take part in the ministries that base is doing, but you're most of the time going to class. And it's like Bible class. And I had like a new speaker every week, and they would pick a topic and we'd go over the topic and like read scripture. And then like, but also at the same time, we're doing like outreaches and stuff and also fun things. Like my track, there's like different tracks. So mine was like music and missions is what it was called. So we were doing a lot of like songwriting, and they were like in the mornings we'd have Bible class, and then in the evenings we would have like music class, and then we would do like, we'd go play at like rehab centers and stuff like that. So I did that. And I went to the Philippines for the last 2 months of my outreach.
Which that's insane.
Yeah.
So what part of the Philippines were you in?
So I was in
I've never been to the Philippines.
So the Philippines is like 180 some islands, but there's like 3 main ones. There's like the North Island, which is where Manila is. There's the Middle Island called Cebu,
which Manila is the capital.
Manila is like the big like mega city.
Okay.
And then the South Island, and then the city in the South Island we were in was called Cagayan de Oro. So I can't
even say that.
Yeah, it's weird. I don't know if the Philippines is so weird. It's like a mix of American, like Polynesian and Spanish, because there's so many different like melting pots of stuff. So their language is half Spanish.
Well, the islands would cause so much, isolation too as well.
Yeah.
Obviously recently it's been really been different with travel, but
yeah,
that makes
no,
sense.
for real. Yeah. And so like half their language is like a mix of Spanish and like their like native tongue, and like every island speaks a different dialect. So yeah, all the words I learned in the first 3 weeks I was there were useless whenever we traveled like 8 hours north. So it was strange. So yeah, so the first 3 months is like a lecture phase, and then the last 2 months is a outreach. It's like a practical, like it's kind of like our final exam, So we go do like mission work overseas. So I spent a month in the Philippines and a month in Cambodia. So I was in Cagayan de Oro for 3 weeks. I was in the island Cebu for a week, and then we flew to Cambodia, and I was in the capital. No, not the capital. Phnom Penh, the capital. Yeah. For a month. And we just did tons of different ministries there. A lot of it was children's ministries. We would just do like walking around the slums. I saw some like
pretty crazy stuff
in the slums of Cagayan de Oro. There was like at that time, the government was like, technically the city we were in was kind of locked down because the government was dealing with like an ISIS terror cell in the jungle, So, but it was not like, it sounds dangerous and exciting, but it really wasn't.
Yeah,
like that.
Well, but when you're out of your element, out of your language, in another country, it amplifies
when you
that
hear those
stuff.
things about
Yeah, of course.
So we did that. We did a lot of like prison ministry, stuff like that. And then, I'm sorry, I just kicked the mic stand.
You're good.
And then when we went to Phnom Penh, we worked with one ministry the whole time we were there called Children at Risk. And it's like in one of the outer parts of like the more undeveloped parts of Phnom Penh, but it's still in the city. It's like basically like imagine a Sunday school that they run every day for kids. It's like an after school program almost to kind of keep kids safe. And it's like it's for children at risk of being trafficked or being like falling into stuff. So they kind of do that. And we would just do like Bible school stuff, music stuff, hang out with them. We would do prayer walks. And then the last week I was in Cambodia, we left Phnom Penh for about 4 hours outside to like one of these little villages. And we got to build a house, because that's like the main. Yeah,
when you build a house, it means like it's not like what we expect a house to be.
Well, also because we didn't finish it.
Oh gosh.
Because our base in Mexico, was like the first Homes of Hope. So that's kind of our main ministry is Homes of Hope, which is like we build houses for like the church has done one of those kind of.
Yeah,
they went and built a house in Reynosa. Yeah. So we kind of do the same thing. And our ministry, Homes of Hope, is like a YWAM ministry, but our specific area of YWAM was the one who developed that. So Homes of Hope actually moved from YWAM to like Uganda and Cambodia. So us being from Ensenada, where like Homes of Hope kind of started.
So you had this experience in the last week of Cambodia that kind of capitalized or kind of catalyzed to go back to Ensenada.
Yeah, exactly. And so we were going to build a house. And I say we built the house because we were there for 7 days and it took them like 23 days to finish the house.
Yeah, because you were a part of it, but you weren't the
There was so much to do. There was no electricity, so we were just like hand sawing logs, and I was like sanding floorboards for like 6 hours a day in like Cambodia. So but
so take me to this. So you go on this incredible trip through YWAM training. You get this 2 months of sounds like Cambodia and the Philippines. Then you have kind of some, I would say, come to Jesus moments of like, is your faith real? Like, what you've been taught even. And like, I remember you and I had a couple conversations where like there was some lacking parts of like what you'd been taught theologically or like understood. And I remember I was just like, oh yeah, like Missouri is not the full picture of what God is.
Yeah.
And I remember those were really healthy because in some ways I'm like, oh dude, I've never been there. Like I don't, all that. And then you make this choice to go full time and go down to Ensenada. Like how did that come about? I mean, you made it sound like it was just like, I came back and then I just jumped on a plane. Like, I mean, like what happened? Like how did, I mean, if you had that passion, like how did that just go, I want to do that?
So that's really funny because that's kind of something that they almost prepare us for. Like it's almost like it sounds really culty, but it's not, but it's like the reintroduction into society after doing something like that, because you go from like this crazy, YWAM is a pretty charismatic organization too. So like very like Holy Spirit and stuff like that, like praying for healing, stuff like that. Something I've not really experienced.
Yeah. And not something I've had in the non-denominational Christian church.
Yeah, exactly.
In the Western world.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm coming back into this and they're like trying to like preparing us to be like, yeah, it's not gonna be the same. You should still find like ministries. But they weren't like pressuring us to stay or anything like that.
Yeah.
It was like more of just like, this is what you should expect. Like,
but the same thing if you go on a short-term mission trip, you come back and it's different.
People have hard transitions. So I got back. And I didn't really know what I wanted to do because I didn't really know.
That with you.
Yeah, I didn't know I wanted to be a missionary. I was like, that was fun, But so I just started like I picked up a job at a factory. I worked there for a couple months. Just really was not happy. I started working at like retail for a couple months, and I was just like, man, there's got to be more than just like this. And there's nothing wrong with like working and making money. It was just like,
but you had those experiences.
I just spent 6 months without money, and I was having the time of my life. And I was like, well, maybe I don't really need money to be happy.
But then you can't eat. And
exactly. So so then I'm like, well, I still have to eat and buy shoes and stuff. So, so I decided I just wanted to take another break. So I volunteered to go back and work with our summer program we do called Mission Adventures.
And which is in Ensenada.
Which is in Ensenada. And it's a summer camp that they run where youth groups like Kingsway would come down for a week and we would take them on a house build. Like they'd pay for the house build.
Just like we did with a trip to Reynosa.
Exactly. And then we would do and it'd be like, it's a mix of like Reynosa and CIY. So in the mornings and evenings, we would do sessions and I would be a part of that. I've like started preaching a little bit in that. So we do sessions and then we go out and do a house build or go to a rehab center or a prison or like just street evangelism, which was hilarious to see these kids who've never even thought about that.
Talk about streets Jesus and talk about Jesus. That don't, Yep.
And it's like, that's always
terrifying.
That's
even
always
as a pastor, it's still terrifying.
That's always the thing. They're always like, I thought I would hate this, but it was the best part of the trip every time.
Absolutely.
They say that. But so I worked with that for 3 months and it's like, man, you know what? I think I'm just going to stay.
You didn't come back, right?
So right out of my DTS, I kind of skipped the part. Right out of my DTS, I came back home for like 2 weeks, but I was like, I'm not done. I want a little bit more. So I went and worked with Mission Adventures because I got a message from a friend who was like, hey, we need guy staff.
We need help.
Because they only had girls. So I was like, yeah, whatever. I'll do it. And I still didn't have any money. And I was like, whatever. They were like, it's fine. We'll like cover your food. Yeah. So I went and did that and was like, oh, that's awesome. Then I come back, start working at the factory and all of that. And I decided I just need a break. And I know I enjoy this. And like, I don't feel like I'm wasting time like down there because like, even if I'm not like making money or whatever, I'm like doing something productive, I feel.
Yeah.
And then about halfway through that summer, I was like, I think I'm just going to stay down here.
Yep.
And I met my fiance and we kind of started.
Dude, girls, man.
dating a little bit. And I was like, well, if I go back to the States, she's not going to be there.
Yep.
So,
Facts, man.
so
Well, and there's more to that we'll get to in a second,
Yeah.
because, that relationship not only had, obviously with YWAM or meeting with, the organizations you're with, but then also having that be like an international
Yeah.
relationship, not just that.
yeah.
So let me ask you this. So like what, before this year started, because we're going to get to Kesa in just a second, but like, that's his girlfriend, by the way.
Yeah.
Fiance.
Fiance.
What were you guys planning, and what was the organization down there? Because you're with Homes of Hope right now. Like, what were they planning to do this year before this pandemic hit?
So we were actually right before the pandemic hit. It was one of the busiest times I had seen since being down there. There was like one weekend where the two campuses, we have a campus in Tijuana and a campus in Ensenada. And between the two campuses, we did like 22 houses in 2 days.
Holy smokes.
Yeah. And then we were
that many teams of people, that many supplies.
Yeah. There's like businesses that came down. Like was this one business that came down and they built like 7 houses and it cost so much money. And they brought down like their whole company. And like we were calling people who had like left YWAM for other stuff. We're like, hey, do you want to come down for a weekend and help us build this house? Because like we need more people. So we were just slammed, and like the rest of the year looked that way. And then the spring summer camp, it's the same thing, but we just run it in the spring.
In the spring.
That was about to start. We had a bunch of new staff
hired,
come in to volunteer for that.
Mm-hmm.
They were getting prepared. They were going through training.
Gosh.
And we started having meetings. We like started hearing about like coronavirus, and we started like, they were preparing for we do a lot of secondary schools too, because you can actually get a degree through YWAM. It's like an accredited university technically.
Yeah.
And so we had our secondary schools. We have like a school of worship that was getting ready to run, and a Bible school called the School of Biblical Chronological something. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
BCC. And that was about to start. So we were like in
and everything
full
just
throttle.
shut down.
And we had like 2 meetings. We're like, so this coronavirus thing is like
a big deal.
We're just going to keep you guys updated. But the thing is, our base had experienced something like this before, because in 2009, H1N1 happened in Mexico City. So that kind of
it went through all of Mexico, and
so
scary,
we had it stopped because no one was coming down for that. So our base was already like preparing for this. So this is probably what's going to end up happening. So, and then we started. I remember the last team I did was with the spring summer camp. I built a house with him. It's like the Wheaton college football team. They came down.
Wow.
And we built a house and did everything. And
I've
then,
been to Wheaton.
Yeah,
I really have.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that's where Billy Graham graduated, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, and then so like we get back from all that, and then we just start hearing like, yeah, this team canceled next week, and this team 3 weeks ahead canceled. Like there's this big youth group that comes from Modesto every year. They're canceling. And then like next thing we know, our schedule is completely empty through like June. And
I remember you were just like in full on, like, because you were supposed to you guys had gotten engaged, you and Kesa, and you were planning to get married.
Yeah, we were actually planning on like taking the summer slow, because we weren't going to work with the summer program. I was going to like help build the houses, but
when was your original marriage? Like, was it May or was it
September? So like coming out like next month. And so we're gonna take the summer off. We were like kind of excited to just like hang out and like.
Let's just get into that for real quick. So everything starts to shut down. You guys are at the highest level of feeling like, the Homes for Hope are actually making an impact. You're having companies, churches, youth groups all across denominations. You're at the center point of this catalyst. You feel like God's taking you from Cambodia to the Philippines to a factory back to back home. And now you're at this place where you got this fiance.
Yeah,
and
life was
plans,
pretty good, honestly.
And then everything just
everything just kind of shuts down. And
I mean, a lot of people out there, they've had a lot of that
It's
stuff
not even
going on.
like the craziest part is that's not like a unique experience to me.
But you had to make a choice. She had a visa, because that's the big thing we haven't said yet. She's from Sweden. So she was a part of that organization, but she came all the way from Sweden to be in Mexico. So a boy from Missouri met a Swedish.
Yeah. Won her over.
That's crazy, man.
I know, right?
Dude, what a catch. What a Swedish fish.
Yeah, I know, right?
That's a terrible joke. I've been waiting to say it all the time.
Nah, I say it all the time, too. She doesn't even like Swedish fish.
So, dude, I don't think anybody really does.
Yeah, they're
licorice is way better. And I got one of those sweet tart ropes the other day. I don't know if you've had one of those yet.
I love sweet tarts.
They're fire. So you guys are engaged, and I will tell you, my wife and I had a similar issue where like we had a major scholarship fall through months before we got married, and we had to get married in like a completely different circumstance, and it was very stressful and humbling and heartbreaking, and financial things went through the ripples of all the people that were under that scholarship, and we were kind of in the midst of it, but nothing compared to this. I mean, you're talking, you guys had to move back to Missouri to try to get away from.
So yeah, basically when the base shut down, they were like, we're going to try and help you guys out as best we can. They were like giving food to people because like a lot of the missionaries are there by like the little tip of their shoestring financially. They're
obviously.
like paying rent and that's it, because our base was feeding us because like we made enough like extra money from the Homes of Hope stuff to be able to afford to feed staff.
Yeah.
So that falls through, and then all
So
of a sudden
it's
everyone's
not necessarily, this is not a for-profit at
no
all.
No, not a for-profit at all.
Yeah.
Like, and none of the staff gets paid at all. We all have to raise our own support. That's why I'm like a partner with Kingsway.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden it goes from like I just have to worry about rent and utilities to I have to worry about rent, utilities, and food. And I'm like, well, I mean, I budgeted for that, but I have friends who like were negative just on rent in the month, and they were like, you know, and a lot of the times like a team would come down and build a house and like give a tip to their builder. So a lot of them were just living off those tips to like make it through because they weren't having like.
And so I remember the conversation we had where you had to make the choice, and you know, those are the adult choices that, you know, there's no right or wrong in it, but you're just like, we got to make a choice. You guys decided to come back.
Yeah, I decided. I was like, well, if it's going to be just a bunch of downtime, I might as well go and get a job and raise some more money, like extra money, because I didn't want to just like. I know we were supposed to just sit at home, but I didn't want to just sit at home.
There was rumors too that they're going to shut the border down.
There was,
and
if they did
shut
the U.S. border down for non-essential traffic, they would not have let Kesa in because she's not an American citizen. So we actually were making plans to leave on like a Friday, and then we woke up on like a Monday, and they were like, "Yeah, they're probably shutting it at midnight tonight," and we just packed up and drove up. Rented a car because we didn't want to fly because we didn't really know a whole lot about the virus, didn't know how bad it was. People were just like dying everywhere, and then
well, and there was a lot of confusing.
At the very beginning, it was like wear mask, don't wear mask, and
everybody had every zombie movie they'd ever watched in their brain, right?
And like I knew, everyone was so scared, and all we were hearing was like the hospitals in China are overrun, and we're like, and we have it now, and we're like. Oh. So we were just like, we rented a car and drove to Missouri, and then we just kind of like set up shop here.
And you guys have been here for a while, and you know, obviously things have not gotten necessarily any better, but they're getting better.
They're getting better.
So let me ask you. You just mentioned this before we got on, and I know for some of you, you're like, you don't know Jordan, you don't know any of this. I hope this has been an eye-opening thing to kind of see the effects that this is having, not only on personal lives, but also, you know, I think projects and ministries around the world. Like you said that the Homes for Hope haven't started back up, but you've been doing, there's been out of that, is it the Tijuana one or out of?
Both Tijuana and so we had a friend, her name was Debbie, and she was just like, she's from Switzerland and she was just visiting. She wasn't even like crazy working. And she was like, well, since we're not doing anything, let's just give food to people. So she started raising money on her own to like give food, because a lot of the families make their money off tourism and like selling blankets and stuff. And there's no tourism anymore. So people were just like hungry and not having everything that they were used to. And there was a lot of families that were like told they were getting a house next week, and then everything fell through. And they have a concrete block with all the wood next to it and no one to come like build it, you know? So we're like, you know, it's just devastating. So she starts raising money, and then the base picks up on it, and they're like, yeah, that's something we can do. So then the base like raised a bunch of money, and they donated like 10,000 meals or something like across. So they're still just doing like food distribution mainly, and they're trying to plan for like our September DTS to start. I don't know how that looks. I haven't really talked to anyone, but just from what I've heard, that they're trying to do the September DTS and trying to get things to start back up.
Yeah, but there's no been confirmed idea.
I mean, technically the border's still shut.
So inside this time period where you both had to come back, you get back into the U.S., you get back to Mount Vernon. You guys you worked at Walmart here for a while. Yeah, I got a job at Walmart
because there was no toilet paper.
And you know, Kesa wasn't able to work because of her visa. She wasn't able to do some of the things that she had.
Technically, she's just a tourist. She's
just a tourist. She's not allowed to make money. And so that actually transpired over the last month where it ran out and she had to go home.
Yeah. Right? So she has like a 10-year visa, but all of those kind of visas, you're only allowed to stay for like 6 months at a time. And then you have to go out of the country for like 90 days or something like that before you can come back into the country. So, but technically the U.S. is shut, so she couldn't come back in if she wanted to. But she ran out of time, so she had to fly back to Sweden. So she left the 5th of July.
Yeah, so she's been gone for almost a month. So the thought process now, and you guys have been talking about this, is to get back to Mexico because you guys have been paying rent on apartments no matter what. That's just so sad but I love that you were able to do that because there is a consistency that you didn't break your lease that I think is good.
Yeah. You know? When we left, we said we're not done. Like we both said we feel like unfinished and we don't want to end on that. Like we still feel committed to Mexico and we still feel like committed to the ministry, and it's like something I love doing. And I could see myself doing it forever. I mean, I don't think I will, but I could see like that's what happened. So,
and I know your heart, and I know behind the scenes, like this has been a really trying time because I can see why now, and I'm sure those that have listened can see why if you're at that pinnacle of all that, and now all this is getting shoved, and you're working at Walmart, and you're not sure if you're able to get married, and you've had to postpone the marriage, and like you can't even get to Sweden right now because of all this, and it's just crazy. So here's how I want to end this, and I want to just give it an encouragement thing. Like obviously your choices over the next month are yours. You got to figure out if you're going to Mexico. You got to figure out if she's coming. But this mission, I think it needs to move forward. And so one of the things I want to try to do is I want to give those that are listening on here, if they hear your story and they're like, man, I want to, give a one-time gift, or I want to try to help, try to attach to it. We'd love to put a link on here to a place that they could give to you, or to be a part of that. And so I know you're going to get with Jed afterwards, and we'll attach a link to get them to a place where they can do that in a safe way, whether it's through YWAM or whether it's just through a Patreon or something that you have set up. We'll get that figured out. But I know that your mission and what you're doing it sounds like through Homes of Hope, and even just personally, I think the couple that you and Kayla are going to be, I wish we could have had her here too. Yeah. I think there's just going to be a really neat thing that God's doing. And I know that right now has been a really hard season for a lot of people. But I will tell you this, starting up again, getting some food maybe starting, and then getting some homes started over the next year, that's just not going away, man. Yeah, and I'm excited to see how God uses you and continues to move you forward. So, the main reason I wanted to bring you on here today is to say, like, hey, man, like, I think there's some viewers out here that are listening. I also know there's some people that love you behind the scenes that, God's not done with you. I think there's going to be some neat things in the future that we're going to see. And I'd love to be able to do like a digital, FaceTime podcast at some point and be able to see what's going on down there. If you were going to look at somebody that's listening to this, or you're going to speak to somebody that's listening to this, and you're going to say, hey, like, God's at work in Cambodia, the Philippines, he's at work in Mexico, like, if you were going to tell them, how could they get involved, or what way could they start the process now? Maybe not even with you, but with just anything. What would you tell them to do if they're curious about the road that you've been on?
That's a really good question. Because I kind of just fell into it.
Yeah. Well, and what was the thought process? I mean, I know you had some key moments.
Yeah. Well, first I would just say that, like, I don't know. I originally, whenever I did it, I felt like so trapped by like student loans and stuff like that. Yeah. And like, just the expectations that like we normally have just existing in America, like the expectations to like get a job, get a degree, get a job, get a house, get a house, get a wife,
trapped 9 to 5.
And then all of a sudden you're 50 and you're like, oh, I wish I would have done all this.
Yeah.
And that was like kind of the road I was on, but I just kind of dropped it and left. And it was like scary to leave. I remember getting on the plane. I was like, dude, I'm flying to San Diego, and some stranger in a white van is going to pick me up. And then
I've seen this movie.
Yeah. I'm going to cross the border with them. I've never gone outside of the country. And all of a sudden, 3 years later, I'm like, international travel and border crossings are
married
like,
Swedish girls.
Yeah. I'm like, I sleep through the border crossing now. And I forget how like normal it is to me. And then I'll like take a team across the border and they're like, whoa, this is crazy. And I'm like, oh yeah, this is like not something for everyone.
Yep.
So it's just the act of like taking the step. But even I feel like there's this big, like with missionaries a lot, it's like almost like celebrities kind of. They're like, oh wow, look at him. I could never do that or whatever. But like, even if you don't want to or you don't have that desire to like travel and like sleep on floors and use bathrooms where the shower is above the toilet and everything's wet all the time and you're just hot and sweat, like all of that, like the adventurous stuff. If you don't want to do anything, like there are so many missionaries out there who are living like with like to the dollar. Like they're like, if I lose $1, I'm not paying rent. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's so many things you can support. I have like, not even me, I just have several friends who like could use support. There's people always trying to raise money, or just like short-term mission stuff like that. Like taking a team to Ensenada, or taking a team to Reynosa, or even just taking a team to like Springfield or something, you know what I mean? And like picking up trash or something, just like getting out and starting something, not waiting and being like, okay, when I have this done and then this done, like don't wait until you're like, all right, I'm going to pay off the car and then I'm going to pay off the student loans. And then I'm going to like, those are things you should probably do if you're going to like go full time into missions. But like, if you just want to like experience it, like you can take a 3-month break. Like you can like,
I think for a lot of what I'm watching and what I heard you say, and I want to key on it because I remember it, it was you were waiting to be perfect to start your perfect calling. And I think it was the moment that you just went, I'm just going to start and I'll figure it out.
Yeah, exactly.
And I know that there have been 10 or 12 different times where you've had to do that again.
Yeah.
Where you're just kind of like, I wish I had all the ducks in a line. I wish I had all the information. I wish I had all the answers. But guess what? Faith comes into the equation again. And I just have to trust. And I think it's harder when you get a woman on your side and you have to look at her and say it's faith. And because it's easier when it's just you.
Yeah, when it's me. I'm like, well, listen, if I have to sleep on the street and
she's
eat
like,
a peanut butter sandwich.
With that, So
I'm like, okay, I'm cool not showering for like a week or whatever. And then she's like, oh no, we're gonna figure this out. And I'm like, oh, okay.
So here's what I want to do. I want to encourage anybody that's out there. Please be keeping Jordan in your prayers as he's making these changes. And even when you're seeing this, it could be a couple weeks. He could be close to going back to Mexico. So
yeah, I'm trying to get there as soon as possible.
I know, whatever you're gonna do, I know God's in control of your life. I know you're listening to His calling. I know personally I'm praying for you and Kesa a lot to just have your marriage be something that God uses in a powerful way. She was just FaceTiming. We were just FaceTiming.
Yeah.
She was in Sweden. It's so cool. The sun's down over there, but it's not down. Which is
it's
the
like,
weirdest, creepiest.
Yeah, it's like midnight, but the sky's
northern
still
hemisphere.
Yeah.
But I know that God has plans for you. And since 7th grade, I've said the same thing to you. He's not going to leave you. He's not going to forsake you. He is with you. And I think that watching you step out of what was, I think you believed as what was demanded of you by the society that you grew up in, and saying, no, I want to follow what God is calling me to, has been a powerful thing in my life. And I think there's a lot of people out there that long to do what you are doing, even though it is tough.
I hear it all the time. I hear it. I wish I could just do that. And then I'm just like, just do it.
Yep.
And they're like, well, I can't.
And I want those that are listening to know that some people send, some people go, but I will tell you this, if you've never gone,
Go
if
for a
you've
little
never
bit.
gone, try it.
Yeah,
Find a place to jump in. Convoy of Hope on Tuesdays does their thing up in Springfield. There are definitely going to be mission trips opening up to do it. And so, hey, thanks so much for coming on the podcast today, Jordan. I really appreciate you doing that.
It's fun.
And if you have any encouraging things to say to Jordan, put it in the comments. If you just want to tell him you're praying for him, if you want to tell him, say, hey, I have a similar story, or you're inspiring, or whatever. I know he'd love to read that. If you want more information, put it in the comments. We'll try to answer any of that. And again, we'll try to link any way that you want to support him or the people that he's got. We'll get some information out there. Even link to the House of Hope.
Yeah,
Homes of Hope.
I can put the link to the website of the ministry if you want to know about that.
Perfect.
I have a newsletter I can link to where you can sign up for that. I send like one a month. I've been slacking during the summer because there's nothing really to write
working
about.
Working at Walmart can be rough.
Yeah.
So thanks again so much for listening. You guys have a great and glorious day in the Lord. Thanks again, Jordan. We'll see you guys later.
Bye.